This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Russia remained China's top oil supplier in the first 2 months of this year, data showed on Wednesday, as Saudi supply cuts continued. China's imports from Russia, including supplies via pipelines and seaborne shipments, rose 13% on the year to 17.72 million metric tons, or 2.16 million barrels per day, BPD, over the January and February period, according to data from the General Administration of Customs. Russia was China's top supplier throughout 2023, shipping more than 107 million tons, or 2.14 million barrels of oil per day despite Western sanctions and a price cap following the Kremlin's 2022 invasion of Ukraine.
Oil prices edged lower on Wednesday after hitting multi-month highs in the previous session, as investors braced for the U.S. Federal Reserve's interest rate policy announcement later in the day. Brent crude futures for May fell 62 cents, or 0.71%, to $86.76 a barrel by 10:28 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures for April delivery, which expire on Wednesday's settlement, fell 71 cents, or 0.85%, to $82.76 a barrel. The more active May WTI contract was at $82.11 a barrel, down 62 cents, or 0.75%. Investors are looking ahead to the Federal Reserve's announcement later on Wednesday for signs of its interest rate path for the rest of the year.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
China's fuel oil imports for the January and February period rose by a fifth from a year ago, data from the General Administration of Customs showed on Wednesday. Imports for the first 2 months of the year were at 3.59 million metric tons, up 21% from the corresponding period in 2023. China's fuel oil imports firmed in line with a trend that emerged last year when independent refineries ramped up purchases of fuel oil for use as lower-cost feedstocks.
Norway's natural gas output fell in February and lagged an official forecast, while crude oil production exceeded expectations, the Norwegian Offshore Directorate, NOD, said on Wednesday. Natural gas production in February fell to 357.7 million cubic meters, MCM, per day from 379.3 MCM in January, and missed a forecast of 367.3 MCM by 2.6%, the regulator said on its website. Crude oil output was steady at 1.83 million barrels per day, BPD, in February compared with 1.83 million barrels of oil per day in January, and 3% above a forecast of 1.78 million barrels of oil per day, NOD's preliminary data showed. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. India's mineral production from mining and quarrying grew 5.9% year-on-year, a Press Information Bureau report said on Wednesday. The country produced over 99.8 million tons of coal in the period on the back of rising power demand. India, the world's second-largest coal user, generated record-high coal-fired electricity in January as rising demand for air conditioning meant that power generation firms did not make big cuts to the use of coal and other fossil fuels.
Prices of Dalian iron ore futures extended gains into a third consecutive session on Wednesday, supported by growing expectations of a wave of production resumption among steelmakers in top consumer China. The most traded May iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange ended daytime trade 1.23% higher at 823 yuan and 50 fen, $114.39 a metric ton. Hot metal output, widely used to gauge ore demand, is expected to see some rise this week. Analysts at Chaos Ternary Futures said in a note, adding that the mounting cost competitiveness of ore following a significant price drop will likely increase its appeal.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Brazil extended its dominance over the United States as the largest corn supplier to China in the first 2 months of the year, and also raised its soybean exports, Chinese customs data showed on Wednesday. The surge in Brazilian supplies to China, the world's largest agricultural importer, comes just over a year after Beijing approved Brazilian corn exports in an attempt to diversify its suppliers and reduce dependence on U.S. goods. China imported 4.1 million metric tons of corn from Brazil of a total 6.19 million tons that arrived during the January to February period. Data from the General Administration of Customs showed, marking a 178% jump from a year ago period.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.